Welcome back to this special edition of Hannity. Over the last 4 years, Joe Biden has been hard to watch. The confusion, the weird comments, the shaking hands with the air, the bouts of anger. It was obvious from the start that the president was not doing well. But now that his time in the Oval Office is coming to an end, the media is suddenly shocked to learn about the true extent of Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Watch.
It was very disturbing to learn late in the year about just how how poor his health has become. And like many, I did not realize that it had gotten to that point.
Undercovered, underreported. That would be, to me, Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline that became undeniable in the televised debate.
At the presidential debate with Donald Trump.
Unquestioned. And, you know, it's starting to emerge now that his advisors kind of managed his limitations. It's been reported in the Wall Street Journal for 4 years, and yet he insisted that he could still run for president. We should have much more forcefully questioned whether he was fit for office for another 4 years.
Wait, that's new. Here now with reaction, host of the Morgan Ortagus Show, Morgan Ortagus, Democratic pollster Doug Schoen, and Project 21 chairman Horace Cooper. Doug, you've been in the Democratic Party, you've been an independent, you do polls for lots of different individuals and entities. I want to know what the American people saw the entire time, if anything, when the people around Joe Biden and his enablers in the media pretended they saw something differently. What did America say?
America said in the polls, and I think they said to all of us who asked, that Joe Biden was not up to the job. And I think the surprise that you heard in those sound bites was not at all reflected by ordinary people who said he was too old and he was too limited. I think it is one of the great unreported stories of our time, but it reflects the media bias and the unwillingness of the mainstream media to face the facts as the American people saw them.
And Morgan, you were a press secretary, spokeswoman, for the State Department. You know how important it is to be truthful and transparent at the podium when you're answering significant questions on behalf of the America's chief diplomat. In this case, what do you think should happen to the Democrat elected officials who saw what they saw with Joe Biden and lied to our faces about it for years, putting our nation's very safety and security at risk? Should this be a disqualifier for 2028?
I think that we should consider a congressional investigation at a minimum to get to the truth. And the reason why this is so important, I'm not saying this as a political person. I'm saying this from a national security perspective. There's a nuclear chain of command in this country. And of course, it ends with whomever is in the office of the president. We know that Xi Jinping, we know that Putin, we know that all of these world leaders looked at Biden, spoke with Biden, met with Biden and Kamala Harris as well, sized them up and decided that they could pretty much get away with whatever they wanted to get away with. The Ayatollah in Iran knew it was open season on taking Americans and getting billions of dollars in return for them. So when I go back to my original point about the nuclear chain of command, you know, it is not beyond the realm of the president to have to make these sort of life or death decisions on behalf of the country. And if he wasn't cognitively able to attend meetings or to give press conferences, was he able to make those decisions? And so we need to know who knew about this behavior and who enabled this behavior, because, you know, we're talking about as the leader of the free world. We're talking about we are in an era. We now have two presidents, Trump and Biden, that have said we're in geopolitical competition with Russia and China. It just takes for one little thing to happen in the South China Sea or with the Philippines over the Second Thomas Shoal for America to end up at war with China. And who would be at the wheel making those decisions? We don't know. We really don't know who would have been in charge making those decisions. I think that's a scary place to be from a national security perspective.
Well, Horace Cooper, one answer to Morgan's question is the vice president would be in charge if the president, for some reason, can't be on a given day, week, or month. And yet her name was Kamala Harris, the vice president. And I think that the media and the handlers also covered up for her in a different way, a different kind of acuity and energy and connective tissue with the American people. So we had a president and a vice president. People watched them. They rejected both of them as their candidates. So do you think that it's that, or that it's Donald Trump's agenda? What accounted for all of these different would-be Democratic voters coming to vote for President Trump and a little bit down ballot Republicans this time?
Kellyanne, I'm going to have to quote from Casablanca. I'm shocked that there's gambling in this casino. Mainstream media covered up for some of the most significant decline in mental competence that we have seen in a critical place. Our founders would be turning over in their graves because they wanted the First Amendment to hold our leaders accountable. Instead, they've become cheerleaders.
From each of you, in the minute that remains, yes or no, with a quick reason why, does Kamala Harris have a future as a presidential candidate? Doug?
No, she doesn't. I think she should wise up and recognize that losing with an expenditure of $2 billion with the campaign she ran would and does disqualify her.
Morgan, national security expert, are you afraid of Kamala Harris running in the future?
No, I really want her to run against Judy Vance in 2028. I'm all for it. Go for it, Kamala.
And Horace Cooper, what is her chance if she's on her own and has more than 107 days? I always hear that one. I'm like, well, what would happen on 108th day? What do you think about the future of Kamala Harris?
Well, she's got a supersized L on her head because she's a two-time loser. And if she wants to be a three-time loser, I say bring it on, baby.
Wow. I think the American people have a thing or two to say about that. Essentially, our own two eyes helped guide us in this election, not what the media said, and that's what's most important. More of this special edition of Hannity after the break. Thanking my panel.